Toro. I think they were having dinner one time, and somebody gave one of them a compliment, and I think Guillermo del Toro started. He said, "The Masters of Horror, thank you." So that was born that they would then be known as the Masters of Horror, and every once in a while, every month or every 2 months, they'll send a mass email out to all the horror directors and say, "Come join us for a Masters of Horror dinner in Los Angeles," usually like Hamburger Handy or one of those, and you get to go sit with all these cats and just talk horror movies. So I'll rope you guys in. You guys got to come and be part of that, because I miss it sometimes because I live here. But whenever I try to go, it's always a great time. And
you put a 20-minute wood in between lineups. That's the thing.
Let's not make the conversation. Let's not make the conversation.
Matt, anything as far as you?
In my case, it's interesting. It's not specifically horror per se, except that it was a horror film that I was making with For Cloverfield. I had never shot digital, and so the person who was willing to talk to me was David Fincher, and that was really cool because he is such a proponent of digital. And so he and Mike Blondell and I, we all went and we met with him, and we said, we don't know what we're doing, and can you help us? And I said, I want this to look like it's real, like we shot the whole thing on this little camera. What do we do? And he was really, really helpful and generous. And I find that in the experience that I've had, that a lot of very successful professionals actually are passionate about movies, and they're willing to share with you. I mean, on the thing I was doing now, I'd never really had extensive experience directing children, and I was really lucky because Steven Spielberg is friends with JJ, and he had seen Cloverfield. He was like, "Oh, that's a cool film," and I was like, "Well, can I talk to you about directing kids?" Because
you know Steven Spielberg?
I met Steven Spielberg to talk about directing kids, and I was like, "Oh my God, it's Steven Spielberg. What's he saying?" I have no idea. It's Steven Spielberg.
Just looking at the beard, I can't think.
I was like, it was a lot cooler just to see.
Invite them to those lunches.
Yes. Masters of Horror, Steven Spielberg. But he was very generous, and so in my limited experience, I found that a lot of times people who've become quite successful are also just passionate about movies and passionate about sharing it with you. And Fincher was that way, and Spielberg was that way, and that's my very limited experience. But it's like I was sort of in awe of them. Like, wow, this is so cool. But they're so generous.
One thing I've noticed by going to a lot of these festivals is that a lot of the horror, not that they're horror filmmakers, but they're filmmakers who've made a good share of horror films. They want to see another horror film, so they're going to be supportive of Neil and Ty because they want to see those films when they're done. That's it. That's as simple as that. It's like, that sounds like a good monster movie. Can I see that one? And it's as simple as that. It's just they're fans and they're also filmmakers. Thank you for the good question, sir. We'll get some people in the back, I promise. Yes.
Thank you. Just a quick question about CGI. I'm old school, and like I used to have like a fishing tackle box with makeup, and my buddies and I would get really gory. So the question is, traditional like with latex makeup or CGI, which do you prefer? Or basically, what do you prefer, CGI or the real fake stuff?
Practical, CG, or combination of both? Let's start down there.
Well, combination of both is the answer. I mean, obviously you're talking about Tom Savini, and those guys, and Rob Bottin and all those guys are amazing. Like, when you look at what they've done, and the thing about digital effects, what was interesting to me, I'd never done any visual effects before I did Cloverfield, and I was like, let's build everything. Let's make it all real. And so the parasites, we built the parasites, and I was like, I'm going to take the arms and I'll attack the camera. It'll be really great. And
spoiler.
It was bad, actually. It was really bad. And not because the model wasn't great, but because that wasn't something you could do really well. But it ended up being the model that was then taken by the CG people. And what's amazing is that computer graphics has advanced to such an extent. Really what it comes down to is what works. And I think it's a combination of the two. What the CG people were always telling me was, well, let's have something real in the frame. The more that you can have something real in the frame, the more it'll feel real because you'll question it less. So, when this head of the Statue of Liberty comes down the block, if we could also have it knock over 3 cars, and that actually really happens, and somebody jumps over and gets hit, that kind of thing, it's sort of an interplay. So I'm kind of like you, I'm sort of old school, like it should be real. But there are some things that can't be real, and what's amazing is if you do it right, that you can combine the two, and then you don't question whether or not it's real. And so that's, in my experience, that was sort of the thing, sort of a combo platter.
Anybody want to disagree with that one?
For me, no, I mean, I think that's a great answer. For us, we went with real practical makeup for the zombies, and I think it's really hard not to, and things like I Am Legend, I think, support that argument. And I think that, on set shooting squibs, and I was just talking to Robert about this, but we had a lot of practical squibs for the blood splatter, and it was night, and they weren't really showing up, and they take forever to rig. And at a certain point, our stunt coordinator was just like, you know what? Let's just go digital. And I hadn't had any real experience with it, and he showed me the scene he did in, gosh, what's it called? The Martin Scorsese movie, The Departed, where they shoot in the elevator, and that's all digital, and I couldn't believe it. And so from that point on, we just did digital squibs, and it just changed the game. And it also was really fun to be able to, in post, affect how much splatter or how much gore we want to have at various times. And if it, practical, it looks good, but a lot of time the elements that they shoot are real practical squibs going off, and then they just composite it in how they want.
Squibs are a real bitch, aren't they?
They're
Every time I see something on a DVD, they're like,
it's a nightmare, and they can look so good digitally now, and it's not necessarily that they're digital elements. It can be practical elements, composite, but you just save it so much time, it looks so much better. And some of the goriest, grossest stuff in Zombieland was enhancement of practical things. So I think Matt's exactly right. It's best to have what you can there, but then to really make it sing, I think, that's what the technology is so sophisticated that they can really just make it look amazing.
I think that I think CG is brilliant for enhancing reality and not replacing it. And for me personally, if I can do it in camera, I will do it in camera. But if there are some things you simply can't do in camera. So
give us one of your little CG secrets. Give us one of your secrets from your films. What's CG in Doomsday that we didn't say?
The Exploding Rabbit. And the rabbit goes. It's not a CG. It's a composite, but it's we couldn't do it for real.
Of course.
From a filmmaker's perspective, going back to the boobs for a moment, I remember I either read something that Robert said once about with scripts and stuff, it's dangerous and you're risking people's, and I was like, oh, fuck that, man. But then once you actually do risk people's lives at your expense, same thing with the boob thing, you question yourself a little bit. And so the first time you do a stunt that's really dangerous, it's kind of your fault if they get hurt, and that's a bummer. It's really cool for you to go see the guy fall off the building, but when that guy's about to do it and you're about to say action, you're like, oh my god, what if he fucking dies? So there's actually a reality of I'm all for dying for film, but there's also a reality of do we have to do it today? I think that's something that's, maybe it's unfortunate that's part of it, but that there's some sort of responsibility, I think, as being a filmmaker or just being a human being. But I do think if you can do anything organically and in camera, that always seems to have more of an emotional impact than CG, because we've become so hip that we all see CG. We know CG blood splatters for the most part. And it's almost like if you're a fan of that stuff, you go, CG, digital. And then, it's and if you can do it, it's I remember trying to blow up a head once, and we'll do it. You can't do it any other way. It's almost like we've gotten less creative physically. And I was like, yeah, but in Maniac, they just shoot it with a fucking gun. It'll blow up. And they're like, we're not doing that. It's just kind of where the times are, I suppose.
I'm sure Robert would have. We could probably talk all night about the combination between practical and CG.
It's always a combination of them. But I just did one effect kind of like that, and just to show how far I went to keep it. To not hurt somebody. Actually, it wasn't somebody. It was something. Mickey Rourke on Once Upon a Time in Mexico. He brought his own wardrobe, and it was one of a kind suits that were really badass. I'd given him the money for them, but I wanted him to go ahead and keep them afterwards. And he gets to get shot in the back, and I said, "Don't worry, I'm not going to ruin your suit, man. I'm going to do that digital." Thanks, brother.
Well, we're going to do 2 questions from this side of the room, and then we're going to thank our guests and send you off to see some movies. Right here, yeah, ma'am, yes. Oh, you're younger than me. You're not, ma'am.
Thanks.
It is.
Okay, so in my opinion, Grindhouse was really phenomenal because it was different from my generation. Would any of you guys collaborate with another director and do it quick and what Robert did and make a Grindhouse or
Good question.
Like that?
If any of you guys could pair up with a guy to pair up with another filmmaker to make a Grindhouse style film, who would that filmmaker be? What do you think you would do?
I don't know who the person would be, but what sounds the most appealing about that is that, and it's an assumption, but that you guys did what you wanted. You made the movies you wanted to make. So if you're saying hey, you and someone else can go make the movies you want to make and we'll put it out, sounds good to me. We could do it together, we could do it by ourselves, whatever. I don't know, I already did a kind of Grindhouse type film with Doomsday, so